And the autopsy report and the police report very clearly say when they found her in her apartment, her right arm had been totally disintegrated by heat, as had her right rib cage, okay? So much so that you could stand there and see the internal organs of her body. Now, if I can't even begin to describe the amount of heat that would take, okay? But nobody even saw a fire in the apartment. There was just a lot of smoke, okay? And she was identified by her hair color. So right next to this charred burn that disintegrated the bones of her arm is unburned human hair. Okay? Well, hair is the easiest thing to burn on the body. We've all burned it on our forearms around a stove or whatever. And bones bones don't even burn. I mean, technically, when they do a cremation, when they're finished, they're a bunch of bones, and they grind them up and they give you back a box of bone dust, okay? And so there is the obvious conclusion from that is two things. One is this burn of her arm, which was an electrical burn, could not have happened in her apartment because there's nothing in her apartment capable of doing it. Okay, so the whole murder scene was falsified. But the more egregious point on the cover-up was they didn't tell the public the main forensic fact in the case. I mean, this is like talking about the Nicole Simpson murder without mentioning that she got her throat cut.
Yeah.
And so that kind of control, I mean, the firemen who went in the building knew it. The police who went in the building knew it. I promise you the reporters who were covering the story knew it, but it never got published in the newspaper. That is control.
Par for the course. Good point, yeah.
And later that day, this is very interesting because I had the newspaper articles. I was just kind of seeing what else was going on in the world. Later that day, they said that Lyndon Johnson suddenly jumped into his car and made an unscheduled trip over to Arlington Cemetery and went and stood at Jack Kennedy's grave for the first time since the assassination. Same day.
Wow.
So since you're in Austin, LBJ's home court, you know,
that we know.
Maybe they told him something that day that he all of a sudden realized what Jack Kennedy was dealing with.
And how do we connect this to, again, because we're short on time, I kind of want to cut to the chase a little bit. I do want to ask you who you think killed her and why, but how does this connect to the JFK assassination? We've got all the same players. I know everything kind of connects to the Cuban exiles and the JFK assassination, including, by the way, John Lennon's murder. One of the plumbers from the Bay of Pigs was the doorman working at the Dakota when John Lennon was killed. But these guys seem to be everywhere. They're involved in Watergate. They're involved in the JFK assassination. They're involved in this giant cover-up. But how, other than just, the usual things that we have read, how does that precisely connect? And was it part of why JFK was assassinated? In other words, if I can just take a guess here, a shot, and ask a question, did he know about all of this, these engineered viruses, these assassination and biological weapons, and maybe that's just one more reason to get rid of him?
I don't know about all that. The thing that connects it to the JFK assassination is they blamed the JFK assassination on Lee Harvey Oswald, who was in the middle of the biological weapon program. And can you imagine what Lee Oswald would have said if he got into a court of law?
Yeah, or Jack Ruby.
Yeah, and Jack Ruby knew about it too. Ruby and Oswald were old friends. This whole thing. Like Anna Lewis's testimony about saying that she personally went with her husband, who worked for Guy Bannister, with Lee Harvey Oswald and Judith Berry Baker over to the 500 Club, where they personally met with Carlos Marcello. Okay, the whole net on this thing is the Warren Commission told us Lee Harvey Oswald was a loner and that he was a communist. Well, first of all, if you're hanging out with the mafia boss in New Orleans, you're not a loner.
Yeah.
And if you're involved with a team of people developing a biological weapon, you're not a loner. And if the purpose of the biological weapon is to kill Fidel Castro, you are not a communist. Okay, so what I'm saying is you can't nitpick at the Warren Commission. You have to throw it out, right? You have to understand that the very words Warren Commission is meant to mislead you because it was J. Edgar Hoover's investigation that was being presented to LBJ, and the only thing they needed Earl Warren for was the photo op.
Yeah. Speaking of the Warren Commission and J. Edgar Hoover, one of the players in New Orleans was a guy named Hale Boggs. I know Nick Begich, who is Nick Begich Sr.'s son. In fact, he was on the show a couple of days ago, and I mentioned your book to him, and I'm not sure he was aware of it. How does Hale Boggs fit in all of this? Because his plane disappeared, not long after that when he started investigating Watergate and wanted J. Edgar Hoover to account for himself.
Let me explain to your audience who Hale Boggs is. First of all, he's Cokie Roberts' father.
That's right.
Okay, and secondly, he was the congressman from New Orleans in whose district the linear particle accelerator, which burned off Mary Sherman's arm, was located. And they were exposing cancer-causing monkey viruses to radiation using that linear particle accelerator, and it was located on the grounds of the U.S. Public Health Service Hospital, which is a military hospital guarded by U.S. Marines. Okay, and Hale Boggs was a congressman from that district. He was the majority whip of the U.S. House of Representatives. He was LBJ's main ally in the House, and LBJ appointed him to the Warren Commission.
But he didn't buy the magic bullet theory.
Yeah, that's right, and his plane disappeared. And you know who drove him to the airport that day?
No.
Bill Clinton.
No.
Yeah. So, and Cokie's mother, by the way, was also the U.S. ambassador to the Vatican. That was appointed by Bill Clinton. So, round up the usual suspects.
The more we look into this stuff, the weirder it gets. I haven't heard a lot of the interviews you've done. I've heard a few. Is this kind of par for the course? Is this just how it works for you? More questions than answers seem to pop. I mean, anytime we talk about the JFK assassination, that's what we get, Ed. More questions than answers. Are we ever going to really get to the bottom of this thing? Because I got to tell you, I know a lot of the things that JFK was concerned about, and this has to be at the very top of the list. That's why I'm really fascinated by your work, and I think you've done a brilliant job investigating this. Let's wrap it up when we come back after this break with Ed Haslam. This is a dynamite book, explosive in every way. Dr. Mary's Monkey. We'll talk more about it after this.